Hello everyone. So today we are going to be discussing the Dead by Daylight Update 8.2.0 patch notes and what this means for the upcoming state of the game, what are going to be some of these changes, and what are they really going to look like. We're going to go, starting from the top of the list, we'll go down, address each thing, and I'll give my own input on what I currently think and how I think they will affect the game moving forward. So starting with the very first thing that we see that's going to be kind of getting changed is the Dredge. They are aiming to make a few quality of life adjustments for the Dredge. Number one that you see there is, of course, increasing the movement speed while charging Reign of Darkness. So, in general, this is a pretty minor change. It's not anything too terrible, but I do think that, in general, the Dredge by himself, I think, is a very weak killer. And so this definitely is something that is needed, giving him a little bit of extra speed here. This is probably going to help in more niche situations. I don't see this being the absolute game changer part of this, but I do think that that is an interesting choice to make. Now, increased teleport speed outside of Nightfall. This one's huge. That was one of the big problems with the teleport speed, is that it was so slow. Like, going back to 12 meters a second, a lot of times you would try to use this power to kind of cut off a chase. You really just couldn't do it. That's just how slow it was. Like, by the time you would emerge out of your locker where you were trying to cut them off, they're already gone. They're already out of there. They're already planning their next thing. And then say you ended up, you'll see this one coming up in just a couple seconds, but say you wound up in a locked locker, that chase is over, you're done. The teleport cooldown to 10 seconds. I think this is another good quality of life change for the Dredge. That's another one of those issues, is that his power is one of those that you don't get to use it very often because there is almost constant state of cooldown. Even though it's just a 2-second reduction, I really do believe this is going to help Dredge out tremendously whenever it comes to chase and just map surveil. The decreased time to break out of a locker to 2.25 instead of 3 seconds, that one's huge. So, it might not seem a lot, but all of us Dead by Daylight players, we know the value of a couple seconds, a couple meters, all these things way too well. And so, 2.25 seconds, that's also going to be a huge change. That's going to make the locked lockers not quite as valuable. So, it'll maybe create a bit of less incentive to try to lock the lockers, even though I am guilty myself of locking lockers simply because I want the 500 points. And, yeah, I like that aspect of it. But making it to where Dredge doesn't have to spend too much time having to break out, that's another good one, I think. I think this is going to result in him getting more picks. So the increased charge rate of Nightfall meter, 1 charge per second per injured survivor, that's another one that I think is fair. I honestly would have thought even to make it a bit higher. That is another one of those that I've noticed from playing Dredge, is it really does take a long time to get into Nightfall, unless you just spam your power back and forth. Now this one right here is my favorite. I have been saying this for such a long time. And that is the Dredge, even while you're undetectable, while you're running things like trail, anything like that, you are never in stealth. Never. The Dredge is so loud. Just his own noises are so loud. You cannot play stealth Dredge. This hopefully will be the changing point for that, and this is going to make Dredge just tremendously better. Make him a much better pick, because if you could make him an even somewhat usable stealth killer with things like Trail of Torment, Insidious, just random things like that, he's just going to be such an just out of nowhere pick. People are going to want to play him so much more. The adjusted several add-ons, I'm currently not aware of which add-ons are being changed, but I definitely agree that his add-ons, they needed changes for sure. Overall, my thoughts on the Dredge updates, I think that these are all very positive. I don't know anyone that would claim that Dredge was overpowered to begin with, so giving him the chance to become more powerful, I think he's earned this. I think the Dredge needs this. I think these are a lot of really good choices by behavior. I feel like at some points they maybe even could have done a bit more. My two favorite changes that are being made here, of course, are the reduced volume of Dredge's sound effects, and then definitely the increased teleport speed. I think both of these are really going to kick him up to the next level. Moving forward, we have the Doctor. So, Doctor, he didn't get quite as many changes, but I do think the changes he got are pretty good. So, reduce static blast cooldown to 30 seconds if no survivors are in range. I like that. I think that that's definitely a pretty good one. Static blast, I don't feel like you get to utilize enough. So, like, breaking that cooldown quite a bit, I really do like that, especially whenever you're having trouble, maybe later into game. You're not finding survivors. The game's kind of already slipped past you. You need this kind of help find and get yourself back into the game. What I think is weird, though, is that reducing Static Blast cooldown to 45 seconds if a survivor is in range. That is... I don't know. I don't like that. I feel like it should have just been reduced down to base 30 seconds. The 45 seconds within range, I mean, it's easy for survivors to just kind of stealth around you just to like forcibly keep that cooldown to be at 45 seconds. So I don't know how I feel about that. This one I love, though. That was always one of my biggest problems, was the movement speed while charging Static Blast. It was just absolutely terrible. You were 1.16. At least this way, you actually have a little bit of movement still, so like you can kind of try to extend your range a bit. But even then, it's just another one of those that it's a pretty nice, like I think it's a nice little slice of life improvement here. Like, it's going to be nice for the Doctor's character to get a few things. And then adjusted Static Blast cooldown add-ons accordingly. I mean, yeah, that's also a change, I guess. Overall, the Doctor's changes I don't think are anything that are just like game-breaking or like amazing. I think these are just kind of like, you know, glad to see them. Wish they could have done more, though. Next, we're going to go into Nemesis. And they did give him quite a few things. So for starters, requirement for reaching MR2 has been reduced to 5. That one's pretty good. I like that one a lot. That's one of the things about playing Nemesis, is it feels like it takes a really long time to get him started up. And so, like, just even changing that down to 5 points, I think is going to help out a lot. The increased hindered penalty duration when affecting a survivor to 2 seconds. That one's also really good, and that one took way too long to get here. Before, it was, you know, a quarter of a second. That wasn't helping anything. But increasing this to 2 seconds, I think that is going to be huge. That's going to help out a lot. And then adjusting Liquor Tongue and Marvin's Blood add-ons, you know, I feel like those are just okay. But in general, I do like the increased penalty duration, and I do like the reduction in the contamination points to reach Stage 2. I think these are some good changes. I think it'll definitely help get Nemesis started up and just encourage more people to play. So, now we're going to get down into the perks, starting with Blast Mine. Blast Mine, they reduced the activation requirement to 40%. I don't know. I thought 50% was way too long to begin with. I'm glad to see it down to 40%. But, I mean, maybe it's just being a bit more survivor-minded. I felt like it should be down to 30% repairs for Blast Mine to be active, but yeah, I do like this change, bringing it back down to 40. Wiretap. Wiretap made me so upset whenever it got changed to being 50%. So, to begin with, if you're using Wiretap, that's something you want to put in so early. You don't want to wait till you're halfway through to use a perk, because it seems like a waste of a perk at that point. Like, yes, you're going to get a little bit of value out of it here and there, but I think Wiretap is another one that should be at like 30% in gen repairs. And it's not like it's a super powerful perk to begin with. It goes away as soon as it's kicked. Like, I feel like Wiretap could get more love than just the 40%. But once again, I'm glad to see the reduction. So, Chemical Trap. I don't actually use it, but for the 5 people that do use it, they'll probably be thrilled to see this. So they bumped it all the way down to 20% gen repair, which is pretty generous, but the trade-off is they completely cut in half how long the trap lasts. which at that point, like, I mean, that's not really fair, you know. I don't know. I feel like if you're using this, you're definitely trying to use it in a situation where you can create like a more favorable loop situation for yourself, or maybe you're running it with any means so that you can try and double doink them. But yeah, that's one of those that I feel like they tried to do something really nice by bumping it down to 20%, but then they also kind of shot the perk in its foot by changing how long it's going to be lasting. Next is Mirrored Illusion. I like this one as well. However, they did the same thing with Chemical Trap, to where they bumped it down to 20%, which is awesome, but then they once again cut in half the duration. I like Mirrored Illusion quite a lot, even if it's not so much like a great perk. Maybe you'll get value out of it. You probably won't, but I like the idea of popping a Shadow Clone Jutsu in the middle of a match. It's just so funny. But overall, with these perk changes, or these first four, I think that they did okay with the gen perks. I think they could have done better, though. It's kind of disappointing. Dance With Me, I like this one. I like this one a lot. Breaking it down to 20 seconds is another one that I think is going to be huge, especially with the kind of new looping meta, where you're adding new things in, like Finesse. So, like, now you can have Finesse, Dance With Me, Resilient. Well, actually, not. Well, I mean, Resilience for once you take your first hit, of course. I do like the fact that Finesse doesn't stack with Resilience. That would be way too OP. But this does give you options if you're just going to run a full-on chase build, which I think would be great to see again instead of just a Gen Slam build. For Deception, I mean, no one uses Deception seriously. It's a meme perk, like just quite literally. So I think giving it a 20-second cooldown, I think that's more than fair. It's a perk you're using just to have fun anyway, so you might as well get to use it more often. So Diversion. This is another one that you're typically just using to have fun, so like, might as well give them the ability to do it quicker. And I like this one as well, about 20 seconds. That one seems fair as well. Like I said, I like Deception and Diversion. I think they're fun perks. They're not great, but I love Pebble Tag, and I love just doing Deception for no reason. So I'm quite happy with those changes. And then Flashbang, this is the big one. So, getting it down to 40%, I think that this is a good change. I like it quite a lot anyways. I like Flashbang. I even like Flashbang as a killer, which is like very, very controversial opinion. I think it's fun to avoid a Flashbang, and then even whenever you don't, you can't really be too mad about it. But yeah, I think bumping that one down to 40% was a fair choice. There'd be so many times where you'd want to use a Flashbang, and you couldn't, because you were either constantly being in chase, and you just never had the option to really get that 40%. Now, here's where we're going to get into some things that are going to make people unhappy. Number one is the prestige levels no longer being shown in pre-lobby game. I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Now, this is one of those, like, well, how does it really affect you? But, personally, I like seeing the prestiges. It always hypes me up before a match. Like, I kind of get to play that own little head game of, like, oh, if I'm the highest prestige survivor, you know, I have to be the one, you know, I gotta try to carry this, I have to try super hard, you know, I gotta solo this. It puts you into that headspace, even if it's not true at all. Everyone knows prestige doesn't really matter in terms of like how good you are at the game. But it does let you hype yourself up a bit. Or like if you realize like, oh dude, I'm the lowest prestige, you know, maybe these other ones will take care of me a bit. Maybe I can get away with slacking more. It's just one of those that I think is fun. And then as a killer, it's the same thing too. If you see like a couple P100s in your lobby, you get to really psych yourself up and be like, man, I gotta lock in. This is the match. You can tell yourself these survivors are going to be amazing. I have to be ready for them. You know, it's going to be great. Same thing if you have a couple of baby survivors. You get to think to yourself like, well, you know, maybe I can be a bit more friendly this match. You know, you can be a bit more lax. But now you don't know. So like now you're constantly having to like you're going in blind. You don't get to figure out like, oh man, how do I want to try to play this match? Should I be super serious? Should I be a bit more fun? You just kind of lose that. And I do know, I believe Behavior stated that at the end of matches, you will see again what the procedures were of all of you and all your teammates. But like, I don't know. At that point, it's just boring. Like, why make us wait till the very end to see what everyone's prestige was? So for hook stages, we've increased these to 70 seconds. I'm cool with this. I think with a lot of the new unhooking meta that's coming to the survivors, with some of the changes like to babysitter, I think that it's definitely giving survivors the edge when it's coming to hooks. But like that trade-off in that past update where now hooks respawn, I don't think it's too bad of a change, to be honest. And I say this as someone who plays more killer now more than survivor, so like, yeah, I don't really have a problem with this. Scratch marks. So from what I've seen of how they are changed a bit, I like it quite a bit. I think this is a good change. And some people might disagree and say it's making it a bit more unfair, but at this point, at the end of the day, Dead by Daylight is a game that's meant to be fun, and winning a chase is considered fun. People want to play more if they're getting more wins and chases. So like, I think this is a good scratch mark, or a good change for scratch marks. Next is Midwich. So, I'm a bit upset by this change in general. And it's just because I really like Midwich. Which that might also be definitely an opinion that people don't like or agree with, but I've always liked it as survivor or killer, so seeing that they're going to be changing it a bit, I think that maybe I don't know, it's a bit sad to see the changes. They removed the breakable walls in the bathroom, which I think that one is a pretty solid change. That one probably needed to happen. The layouts to reduce the long-range visibility. Yeah, that's another one that definitely needed to happen. It was a bit unfair, especially if you were playing against a ranged killer. And then adding objects near the exit gates to reduce visibility. That one I don't like. I feel like that was one of the saving graces of this map, was like, oh, I can kind of look at that other gate from here. So like you kind of had to strategize a bit more about when you were going to open the gate, or like, was it worth hopping on this gate knowing the killer could see you? Sometimes you could use that as a diversionary tactic to make them come after you. But overall, changes to Midwich, it's sad for me, but they needed to happen for the game for sure. That is going to do it for the upcoming changes so far. Now, in general, I would give this patch, I would give it a solid, I'd say B plus or A. I think that there are some good changes that are coming to the game. I really like all the changes to Dredge. I think those are going to get him up and running again. People are going to want to play him more. I think that the gen activated perks getting reduced activation times, I like that quite a lot. I think that a lot of them needed it. I don't really like the fact that they've changed the durations of those perks. I don't think that needed to happen. So like that's one of those that's like, okay, yeah, he didn't really need to do that, but I guess I see it. The prestige thing, I'm really not a fan of. Let me know below if you guys like that or not. Like, once again, for those reasons that I said, that's why I'm not a fan of it. But maybe that's okay with you. You probably don't care, like, oh, it's just prestigious, whatnot. But I like to kind of roleplay these scenarios and whatnot. I like to think to myself, like, you know, when it's time to clutch up, when it's time to be friendlier, like, I like to look at the prestigious to kind of help me get the idea. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode addressing the updated patch notes. And so yeah, I personally don't have access to play the PTB, so those of you that do, let me know if these changes have been good or if they've been just terrible. Maybe I didn't understand something I read, maybe I said something seemed good and you looked at it and was just like, no, that's horrible, that's game breaking, you know? Let me know below what your thoughts personally are, and if you like this video, and if you like this style of video addressing these patch notes, giving my opinions on things like that, let me know below. like, and subscribe. Thank you all so much and have a great day.